So we have finally come to the end of our Upadeshamrita challenge. And I have to confess, first of all, that I have officially failed the challenge, because the challenge was to go through the 11 verses of Upadeshamrita in the 2 weeks that I was in London. So I failed the challenge because I only did the first 10. I'm here in Hungary to go through the 11th one. However, just because I failed doesn't mean that you will fail. So anyway, let's go through let's dive into the 11th verse, which this is the one verse which I haven't memorized. But here it is. kṛṣṇasyochchaiḥ praṇaya-vasatiḥ preyāsibhyo Radha kuṇḍaṁ chāsyā munibhir abhitas tādṛg vyadhāyi preṣṭhair asulabhaṁ kim punar bhakti-bhājāṁ tat premedaṁ sakṛd snātur aviṣkaroti. Śrī Rādhā is the highest object of Śrī Kṛṣṇa's love, above all his other lovers. In all respects, her lake has also been established as such by the sages. This lake bestows upon those who bathe within it only once, prema that is extremely difficult to attain, even for those who are dear to Krishna, let alone for practitioners of bhakti. So, we've been on a long journey, right? And by the way, there have been some awesome comments coming in from those of you participating in the challenge. I liked one comment from Professor Jason Clower. We're honored to have him on this journey. He commented that in just 9 verses we've crossed in just a few days, we've crossed over all the planes of material existence. We've set a new record. So of course, this is conceptually, we've crossed through so many different planes. In terms of our realization, that's another matter. But we've been on a journey, right? We've been on a journey on some level. And it's so beautiful, actually, going through these verses in a systematic way, in the way that we have it, and within a time frame. So it's not like you're reading one verse and then spacing out for a few months and then coming back, but in this clear step-by-step way, we've been through these verses and we're able to appreciate the order and the system that's being presented here. So Rupa Goswami started from a very base level, moved up to the spiritual sky, and then within the spiritual sky, moved within the gradation there. And now within the plane, the highest plane, now Radha Kund, right, has been identified as the highest place. And this is mentioned previously in the 9th verse here, where different planes of existence, different planes within the spiritual sky are being compared, let's say. And then in the 10th verse, so there in that 9th verse, Radha Kund is identified as the highest place in the spiritual sky. Then in the next verse, which is discussing different levels of devotees, then also Radha Kund is mentioned as the highest place, and that the highest devotees, they reside there, they serve there. And now again in this 11th verse, this is being elaborated on in a deeper way. And so a couple of key points here. Firstly, this point that of the paramount position of Śrīmatī Radharani, particularly for those in the line of Sri Rupa, the Rupa Nugas, the followers of Sri Rupa, the dearmost follower of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the position of the ashray, the servitor, the shelter, the abode of devotion, rather than the Vishoy, Krishna, who is the ultimate recipient of devotion, service, the enjoyer and the enjoyed, right? So in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the line of Rupa Goswami, it is the ashray, the devotee who ultimately is celebrated more emphasis is placed there. It is ultimately Radha Dasyam, not Krishna Dasyam, that is identified as the goal. And we find here an intense adherence, radical adherence to the will of Śrīmatī Radharani. And in this regard, there is a very, a bold expression, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj has called it, of Raghunath Das Goswami. And who is Raghunath Das Goswami? He's been described as our Prayojanacharya, he who has set what is our highest ideal, our highest goal. And so Raghunath, he has expressed particular intense affinity, desire for the service of Śrīmatī Rādhikā. And there's one prayer in particular, Ashabharer mita sindhu mayai katanchit kalo mayati gamita kila sampratamhi tvam chet kripam mayi vidasya sinaiva kimme praṇaya rajena cha vadarupa karinapi. Very, very powerful, bold expression where Raghunath Das Goswami is expressing this intense appreciation for Radharani, saying that I'm maintaining my life on the aspiration and the hope that one day I can receive your grace. Very, very poignant expression. And he compared Ashabhara, he compares this hope to an ocean of nectar. Just this hope, this desire, this aspiration is like an ocean of nectar, that I may one day receive your grace. And then he's going on saying, and I've been waiting so long for that. But then also expressing, but I don't know how much longer I can go on waiting. And then he says, if I do not receive your grace, because often we could appreciate things more in the inverse, right? So he says, if I don't receive your grace, then what use is anything to me? He says, my pran, my very life is not worth anything to me. What is more valuable than my life? Vrindavan is of no use to me. Even more valuable than Vrindavan, Krishna, he goes so far as to say, very bold, as we said. Even Krishna what use is Krishna to me if I cannot have you, O Radha? And he also, in this expression, he refers to Krishna as Bakarinapi, which means the killer of the Baka demon, this particular bird demon, Bakasura. So Bakarinapi means the destroyer of this demon. So who is Krishna but a demon killer? Krishna is not beautiful without his potency. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's expressed that, without his potency, without Radha, Krishna is almost Brahman conception, almost an impersonal conception. So it is his potency, like there's Shakti and Shaktiman, right? Who is Krishna Shaktiman, the possessor of potency, Bhagavan, right? Bhagavan is the standard name for God in Sanskrit. What does Bhagavan mean? Who is the holder of potency? Who is the holder of opulence? So by nature, this personal expression of divinity, most original expression of divinity, is with his potency, has his potency by his side. So we're not interested in Krishna without his divine potency, who ultimately in the highest expression is Śrī Rādhā. So it is quite a radical statement. And this is the mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he also tells of one incident when Srila Saraswati Thakur, during the circumambulation Parikrama of Vrindavan, Brajamandal Parikrama, there was one occasion, there was one king, some local king, he was circumambulating Radha Kund, and he was doing this, they refer to it as Shashtanga Parikrama, something like that, but they have this practice, you'll see in India, as a way of showing great regard. They circumambulate not just by walking, a revered, object or divine entity, not just by walking in circumambulation, but they give full outstretched obeisance on the ground. Then they mark the spot where the tip of their fingers were, with some stone or something. Then they stand up in that spot and again stretch out full obeisance and like that, so on. So it's quite an elaborate process, and it's a way of showing extreme reverence. So this king and his family, they were doing this around Radha Kund, and there was one servitor of Srila Saraswati Thakur who noted this. and was very excited and came to Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur saying, they have so much reverence for Radharani in the same way that we do. And Srila Saraswati Thakur said, yes, they have reverence for Śrīmatī Radharani, but their standpoint is very different from ours. He said, actually, they are devotees of Krishna. They are primarily concerned with Krishna. And because Radha is dear to Krishna, then they're also offering worship to Radharani. But Saraswati Thakur continued, but our standpoint is just the opposite. That our concern, our wholesale concern is with Śrīmatī Radharani. We want to serve her. Our object of worship, adoration, love, respect is her, Śrīmatī Radharani. And because she adores Krishna, because she is a beloved servant of Krishna, then we also serve Krishna. We also approach Krishna. So, generally, right, we're saying the Krishna consciousness movement, we're trying to be Krishna conscious, we're trying to remember Krishna, Krishna Smriti, and so on. And so it's all Krishna, 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 right? But actually, when you follow this through to the conclusion, you will find in a more fine and esoteric understanding of the conclusions of our gurus, it is the ultimate consideration. Our concern is the Śrīmatī Radharani. And to have a place of service in the camp of Śrīmatī Radharani, particularly in the group of Lalita Saki, under Rupa, Shri Rupa, that is what has very particularly been identified, been pinpointed to be the highest attainment of the jiva. These are things that are all far beyond our head. But this is what our gurus are holding, and they want to give us, we are minors at present, but this is the property that is waiting for us, you could say. So this is one point that comes out in this final verse of Śrī Upadeshamrita. What is the ultimate concern, focus, aspiration of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the supreme paramount position of Śrīmatī Radharani, the aspiration for her service, to have a place in her divine service, even more so than Krishna. So this is one important point here. Then another question comes up, right? It's saying here that one who bathes in this lake only once attain a type of prema, divine love, that is very difficult to attain even for those who are dear to Krishna. So the how should we say, the less discriminating reader of this verse will go jump into Radha Kund. Oh, it says here that if you swim, just bathe just once in the waters of Radha Kund, you will attain this very rare, special prema. So then everyone will go swimming and, I've got that thing, right? But then a more discriminating person, more intelligent person, will think, well, let's see, is there some fine print here? Let's read between the lines. And actually, the answer is actually given here in Upadeshamrita, because it says here that by bathing in this lake, you'll attain a prema that's very extremely difficult, even for those who are dear to Krishna, what to speak of the ordinary practitioners of bhakti. So you think those persons are not, it's saying, so these who are dear to Krishna means persons who already have a place in the plane of devotion, who are already pure devotees, those who already have Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotion, who are already beyond all the coverings of this material world and have genuine love for Krishna, divine love for Krishna. Even they're not able to get this. So then it's here, right? It's obviously telling you it's not so straightforward. It's not so simple. And it's mentioned in the commentaries that, persons like Narada are being referred to, who have some attachment to Aishwarya, the mood of majesty, opulence, Vaikuntha worship, Lord Narayan. Even they cannot get this type of prema. Shiva, Shuka, Nada, Da'ar, Brahmadiko, these great persons celebrated throughout the whole Vedic tradition. From a distance, they are They are paying homage to this great and wonderful thing, but they don't have it themselves. So then what does that tell us? It's not so easy. It's not a matter of physically jumping into those waters. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made a comment, like when someone asked him about this point, like chuckling, it is not that kind of water. It is not that kind of water. These are waters of dedication. We must appreciate that everything is existing within consciousness. So one must reach a particular consciousness of dedication before they can enter such divine. What does it mean to really bathe in those waters? As Saraswati Thakur expressed once, I've been trying to offer a flower to the body of Krishna for thousands of lifetimes. Still, I have not been successful. So what does it mean to offer a flower to the body of Krishna? What does it mean to bathe in the divine waters of Radha Kund, which are a representation of Radharani herself? What does that actually mean? So we in the line of Srila Saraswati Thakur, we do not bathe in that water. Our gurus have shown the example, take a few drops on your head, and finish. And I wanted to share this wonderful quote. I just love this. This is a quote of Saraswati Thakur regarding this concept, bathing in Radha Kund, this topic. I have taken bath in Radha Kund. I took a dip in Radha Kund. I am a lump of flesh and blood. I am my wife's maintainer. I am a sannyasi. I am a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. Thinking in any of these ways does not give the qualification to bathe in Radha Kund. What to speak of such materialistic conceptions? If we are filled with the conception of awe and reverence, we cannot bathe in Radha Kund. So first of all, as long as we still hold some, upadi we can say, this word upadi means some material, we hold some identification with the material plane, some material designation, that we are man, woman, etc., sannyasi. These are all relative conceptions of identity. As long as we hold any of these ideas, we are not able to approach that divine water. And then he goes on to say, even what to speak of that? These are all material ideas, even those established on the spiritual platform. If you have an attachment to this aishwarya, as we mentioned, awe and conception of awe and reverence, you cannot approach that. So what does it mean to bathe in that divine water? How many billions of planes of consciousness must be crossed to attain such a qualification? So as the expression goes, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. One of my friends, who I have much affection for, he simple-hearted gentleman, we were discussing this point, how we don't bathe in Radha Kund, and he said, but my son, he fell in. He fell in once, by accident, Well, who knows who he is, anything's possible. But I would say, even if you fall in accidentally, I don't know if that counts. We are interested not in a physical transaction, but we want the real thing. We don't want to cheat ourselves. So we are hearing these things with appreciation, continuing with our practice, and the practice itself is so relishable, so fulfilling, so meaningful, despite challenges along the way. So we know that this high thing is waiting for us. Our gurus want to give this to us, then one day it must come to us, this fortune. There was one, I'll close, I don't want to go on too long, but I'll close with one story. There was one occasion, two devotees, one of them was one of my sisters actually, in Govardhan. They entered our guru, this is in 2008, our Gurudev was visiting Govardhan, and our Gurudev was sitting, and he was pretty much alone at that time in his quarters, and these two devotees entered to give their morning respects. And our Gurudev, he was in a particular mood, and he said to them, tomorrow, very early in the morning, we will get up, we will go to Kusham Sarovar, collect some flowers there, and then we will go to Radha Kund and do our service to our gurus there, and then we will return back here to Govardhan. I believe we mentioned this ideal in the previous video in this series. We've heard this ideal, but our Gurudev at this time, Srila Govinda Maharaj, he was in this particular mood, some type of ecstasy, and he expressed this to these two devotees. And very straightforwardly, tomorrow we will go early and do these things. With Guru Maharaj, he also said, maybe I didn't say that. And these two devotees, they're very surprised and looking around the room, like, who's he talking to, but there was no one else in the room. He was talking to them. So such fortune may come to us. They want to give it to us. Srila Gurudev also mentioned one incident that Srila Sridhar Maharaj told him once of, in Vrindavan, Radharani, she's out one day with, I believe, Lalita Saki and others, and notices one girl some distance away, and, oh, who is that girl? She's very beautiful. She looks very capable, and inquiring about this one girl, and then saying, oh, I want to bring her into this group, And Gurudev mentioned, such fortune may come, suddenly. So, very high things, very, very high things on our heads. So we have concluded these 11 verses of Upadeshamrita. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful journey. It's not totally over yet, though. Please stay tuned. There's going to be a test, optional, of course. There are going to be questions, and there are going to be prizes. So please stay tuned for that. Okay, hoping this finds you all very well. Jai Shri Gurudev.